machine the size of a double-decker bus, over 100 tons of steel, mirrors, and vacuum chambers. Inside it, droplets of molten tin are blasted by a laser 50,000 times every second, each one exploding into light hotter than the surface of the sun. That light has a wavelength of 13.5 nanometers. To put that in perspective, it's roughly 5,000 times thinner than a single human hair. This machine costs $400 million, and there is exactly one company on Earth that knows how to build it. Not the best company, not the market leader, the only one. Every AI chip inside ChatGPT's servers. Every iPhone in your pocket. Every advanced missile guidance system, every self-driving car, every data center being built right now in the middle of a desert. All of it traces back to machines made by this single company in a town most people have never heard of. If that company stopped shipping tomorrow, the modern world would not just slow down, it would stop. This is the story of how one company built a monopoly more total than anything in modern history, and why that monopoly might now be its greatest vulnerability. The company is called ASML. It's headquartered in Veldhoven, a town in the Netherlands with about 45,000 people. ASML was founded in 1984 as a joint venture between Dutch electronics giant Philips and semiconductor equipment maker ASM International. Here's the strange part. ASML holds a monopoly in extreme ultraviolet lithography, the technology at the heart of modern chip making, and controls over 90% market share in older generation lithography systems as well. 100% monopoly isn't supposed to exist in a global economy. Governments break those up. Competitors find a way in. Capital floods toward anything that profitable. And yet, for the most advanced chip-making machines on Earth, there is no second option, no backup supplier, no good enough alternative. OPEC's 40% share of world oil production looks unimpressive by comparison. So how does a company end up with more market control than the most powerful oil cartel in history? To answer that, we have to go back to a leaky shed. The story begins in 1984, in a leaky shed next to a Philips office in Eindhoven, Netherlands. A handful of engineers, modest funding, and an industry that already had two dominant players, Japan's Nikon and Canon. ASML wasn't just an underdog, it was a joke. In 1985, when ASML was still a nobody, AMD's CEO Jerry Sanders publicly complained about Japanese machine unreliability, and ASML wasn't even in that conversation yet. Then came the moment that should have ended the company entirely. In 1992, the company nearly went bankrupt, surviving only through a 36 million guilder emergency loan from Philips. Most companies that nearly die at this stage either get acquired, pivot into something safer, or quietly disappear. ASML did none of those things. Instead, it made one of the strangest bets in industrial history. By the late 1990s, the chip industry hit a wall. The lithography machines of the day used deep ultraviolet light to etch circuits onto silicon. But chips were getting smaller and smaller, and you can only etch a pattern as small as the wavelength of the light you're using. Japan's Nikon and Canon, the established giants, made the obvious move. They had invested billions in developing 157-nanometer dry tools, the obvious next step. ASML didn't take the obvious next step. TSMC's Bern Zheng Lin proposed an alternative, 193-nanometer immersion lithography, using water between the lens and the wafer to shorten the effective wavelength. While Japanese firms hesitated, ASML and TSMC partnered to commercialize immersion tools by 2004. One partnership. One unconventional idea nobody else wanted to touch. This single decision rendered billions in Japanese R&D obsolete and allowed ASML to capture 70% of the lithography market by 2009. Billions in spending, gone overnight, because two competitors hesitated and ASML didn't. But that wasn't even the real gamble. The real gamble came next, and it would take 3 decades to pay off. ASML began serious EUV research in the 1990s as part of an international consortium. The goal? Build a machine that could use light with a wavelength so small it shouldn't even technically be usable. Virtually flawless mirrors bend this ethereal light, measured in single-digit nanometers, laying out transistor patterns onto silicon wafers, each line 6,000 times thinner than a human hair. The entire process has to happen inside a vacuum, because EUV light gets absorbed by air itself. This is the part most people get wrong about ASML. They assume a company became a monopoly through some shady business trick, cornering a market, buying out competition, lobbying regulators. That's not what happened here. In the late 1990s, ASML joined a US consortium, including Lawrence Livermore and Sandia National Laboratories, to explore the foundational science. By 2006, they shipped their first EUV prototype. It produced one wafer in 23 hours. 23 hours. For one wafer. A factory needs thousands of wafers a day to be commercially useful. This breakthrough prototype was, by any practical measure, a failure. And yet ASML kept going. The company spent 3 decades and over 6 billion euros in R&D to develop EUV technology, the longest and most expensive gamble in semiconductor history. Most companies don't survive 30 years of betting everything on a single unproven technology. So why did ASML? Because ASML didn't fund this gamble alone. It convinced its own customers to become its investors. In 2012, when EUV was still in relative uncertainty, ASML launched a customer co-investment program and persuaded its 3 biggest bid candidates, Intel, TSMC, and Samsung, to become its shareholders and R&D sponsors at the same time, securing about 1.38 billion euros in direct funding for next-generation lithography research and roughly 3.85 billion euros for minority equity stakes that together gave them around 23% of the company. Think about how strange this is. The 3 biggest chip makers on the planet, companies that should be playing ASML against each other for the lowest price, instead handed ASML billions of dollars and a piece of their own competitive advantage, just to keep it alive. That gamble turned EUV from a promising moonshot into a shared survival project for the entire high-end chip industry. Because if EUV failed, everyone would suffer. But if it worked, those 3 foundries would be first in line for the only machines that worked. This is the moment ASML's monopoly stopped being a possibility and started being inevitable. Its competitors weren't just losing a race. They'd lost access to the only people who could have funded a rival. By 2009, ASML had already captured 70% of the lithography market. But EUV was the technology that turned dominance into total control. After 3 grueling decades of R&D, tens of billions of euros, and the development of a supply chain of some 5,000 niche partners, the introduction of EUV lithography in 2019 marked a pivotal leap in the manufacture of the world's most advanced chips. Today, the numbers are almost absurd. ASML posted around 9.6 billion euros, about $11.5 billion in net profit in 2025. And the company owns 83% of the total lithography market across all categories, with 100% of the advanced EUV segment. Each EUV machine typically comes with its own embedded ASML technician, who remains on-site for the tool's 30-year life. Read that again. ASML doesn't just sell you the machine. It sends a person to live at your factory for the machine's entire operational lifetime. That's not a customer relationship, that's an occupation. So why can't a competitor just build their own version? Throw enough money at it. Hire away the engineers, copy the blueprint. Because the moat isn't really the machine, it's everything underneath it. The whole system requires components from over 800 suppliers across the globe, including the world's most advanced optics from Germany's Zeiss, which took 15 years to develop. 15 years, and that's just for the mirrors. Even if a competitor had unlimited funding and could poach ASML's entire engineering team, they'd face an insurmountable problem: 30 years of iterative improvements, dead ends discovered and avoided, supplier relationships forged through shared problem-solving, and manufacturing processes refined through trial and error. You can't compress that learning curve. This is the part that should worry anyone betting on a rival catching up. China has reportedly invested tens of billions trying to develop domestic EUV capability. They're at least a decade behind, possibly further. A decade with unlimited state backing. That's how deep this moat actually is. But total dominance has a cost, and it's not the one you'd expect. ASML isn't just dependent on its own engineering. An ASML EUV machine is less a tool than a wondrous invention, roughly the size of a double-decker bus, weighing over 100 tons, and so complex it must be broken into hundreds of crates and shipped on multiple cargo aircraft or dozens of trucks before being reassembled in a specialized factory. Hundreds of crates, multiple cargo planes, one missing component, one supplier going bankrupt, one geopolitical dispute over a single part, and the chain breaks. And remember those 800 suppliers? A huge chunk of the most critical technology inside ASML's machines isn't actually Dutch. Key parts of ASML's most advanced systems remain tied to US-controlled technologies, while its overseas sales are heavily constrained by US policy, which makes it difficult for the company to make fully independent commercial decisions. ASML built the monopoly, but it doesn't fully control who it's allowed to sell it to. This is where the story stops being about engineering and starts being about geopolitics. A proposed law would hit the producer of chip-making equipment harder than before by targeting not just new sales but also high-margin servicing revenue from China. It's called the Match Act, the Multilateral Alignment of Technology Controls on Hardware Act. The numbers at stake are enormous. China was ASML's largest single market in 2025, representing 33% of total revenue. In the 2025 fourth quarter alone, that figure was 36%. ASML had already planned for that to shrink, guiding investors to expect China to account for about 20% of total sales in 2026. But a new law could push that even lower. And it's not just about new machine sales. ASML's revenue from servicing previously installed equipment in China, which has been a key growth driver, would be at risk. Remember those embedded technicians living on-site for 30 years? If the law passes, some of them might not be allowed to keep doing their jobs. China isn't sitting still either. Chinese semiconductor manufacturers are successfully circumventing Western export restrictions by retrofitting older lithography systems already inside the country. And there are rumors emerging about a Chinese-developed prototype for extreme ultraviolet lithography that could one day challenge ASML directly. A Chinese trade official summed up the irony perfectly. ASML's CEO warned that tighter curbs would push China toward creating competing tools, while a Chinese expert countered that export curbs on China would backfire on Western tech firms. Both sides agree on one thing: cutting off the monopoly might be the very thing that finally creates competition for it. You don't work in semiconductors. You've probably never thought about lithography machines before this video. So why does any of this matter to you? Because every piece of modern technology you touch is downstream of this one choke point. ASML has become the toll booth on the road to the future. Every bit of data we create must, at some point, pass through its gate. If trade tensions escalate and ASML's supply chain gets disrupted, even partially, the effect isn't contained to one industry. The ASML monopoly reveals a fundamental vulnerability in modern civilization. The most advanced technologies often depend on concentrated, irreplaceable capabilities. Slower AI development, delayed iPhone releases, pressure electric vehicles, stalled data center construction. All of it traces back to whether a fleet of cargo planes can keep delivering crates to a handful of factories on Earth. So go back to that machine in Veldhoven. The 100 tons of steel and vacuum chambers, the tin droplets exploding into light hotter than the sun, 50,000 times a second. It took a company that nearly went bankrupt, a 15-year side project just to build the mirrors, and 30 years of betting everything on physics nobody else thought was usable. And what it built wasn't just a machine. It was a single point of control over the most important technology of the 21st century, sitting in a town of 45,000 people, caught between two superpowers who both need it and don't fully trust it. The world spent decades trying to avoid exactly this kind of dependency. And in the race to build the smallest, fastest, most powerful chips ever made, it built one anyway.